Thank you for joining us for the Miami Valley Salute to Veterans. I'm Bob Daly, a volunteer host of the Miami Valley Communications Council. Longtime volunteer for the Communications Council, I learned the tricks of the trade by covering city council meetings in Bellbrook and Centerville. I'm an old newspaper man and well aware of the need for an informed public. Public access television helps fulfill that need. We hope that hearing these memories from the veterans of our community will help us better understand the dedication of those who served. Today we're talking with Denny Lammlein of Springboro, an Air Force veteran who served from 1969 to 1994. He will tell us the story of his time in the military. But first, please tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I know you're active in the community. What are you working on?
Yeah, I've been retired now for about, 2011, so 14 years. And since that time, I've jumped into a lot of volunteer activities. Probably the biggest use of my time is with St. Vincent de Paul at Incarnation Parish, as well as over at our St. Mary the Assumption over in Springboro. So, and that we do a lot of different work for the needy in the neighborhood, bringing them Kroger cards for food. We have furniture drives, rent checks, and so forth. A lot of whatever they might need, we try to fulfill them, and we get our funds primarily from our parish, Incarnation Church. So that I'm also in the Knights of Columbus. A lot of different things that I volunteer with.
And you have a volunteer role at St. Leonard, I understand?
I do. We started this about 7 or 8 years ago.
Uh-huh.
We didn't start it. Actually, it had been going there. It had been run by residents at St. Leonard's, but the president at the time decided that his time was over doing that, so they asked the Knights of Columbus if they had some volunteers that might want to come in and do it. So I raised my hand and jumped in there. And then another individual from one of the veterans organizations, he's also an Air Force veteran, he jumped in. He became the commander of the unit, and I'm the recorder, treasurer of the group. We have about 10 or 15 or 20 sometimes of the veterans that show up, and it's really an interesting monthly visit, about an hour-long meeting, and listen to their stories. So it's really a good.
And I think
good
it's great that you do that.
Yeah.
Where were you when you were military age?
I was, back in the days, it's kind of the strange days of the 60s. And what do they say about the 60s? If you remember the 60s, you weren't really there or something like that. But anyway, I went to the University of Akron. That's where I was born and raised. And a 5-year program, co-op in engineering. I'm looking for a way to finance my education, and ROTC was looking for students that had a good record and also were interested in math or engineering, type subjects. So I was in mechanical engineering, and ROTC was mandatory for 2 years at the universities back then, a lot of them. So I was already in ROTC, but they offered me the scholarship for the last 3 years, and I took it. And it was a 4-year commitment, and I stayed on active duty for 11 years. So went through the ROTC program, graduated, had my bachelor's in mechanical engineering.
Uh-huh.
And my first assignment was to Minot, North Dakota. And as an engineer to go up there, Boeing was installing Minuteman III up there. It's part of the triad of weapons of defense. They have these missile silos all over the North Dakota, South Dakota. I think it was Wyoming and Montana. So that's where the bulk of the Minuteman missiles were. So we went up there, and I was on this what they call Site Alteration Task Force, SATAF, to monitor the installation. So we were like an inspection team. We'd go out in the field every day and see what was being done, and we'd sign off on different phases of the installation as we went. And I was there for about 2 years. So from there, they say, only the best go north. Well, I got an assignment from there to Thule, Greenland. And that's way north. That's above the Arctic Circle. So I was up there as an engineer, the assigned engineer up there to monitor another contract. This was the operations contract of the BMUS system at the time, Ballistic Missile Early Warning System. And I'm not sure if that is even still active anymore with all the satellites we've got going. The purpose of BMUS, of course, back in those days, was to monitor the Russians and make sure they weren't firing missiles over the top of the circle to attack us. So it would give us 30 minutes of warning if we detected missiles coming our way. So thank goodness it never happened. But, that place was operational for, a long time. I don't know, maybe 30 years or so. But that was cold up there.
I was in the Army in Nike guided missiles, and I had heard of Thule Air Force Base. I was glad to have missed that. But I was there. This would have been the mid-1950s.
Yeah.
So they had Nike guided missiles, and I think it just had the Ajax. And I don't know, and I look back now, the range of the Nike Ajax missile was 25 miles. And in today's this military service, can you imagine that 25 miles? So then in 10 or 12 years before you got there, they improved the weaponry quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds
absolutely.
like.
Yeah, I remember, on weekends or whatever, we'd go out and explore, even though it was cold. We had our muckalucks, our boots, and parkas on and stuff. We'd go driving the vehicles around the base or even off base, and we toured some of these old Nike sites. They were still there, but totally inoperable, so just buildings there. So we did some touring out there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm surprised that the investment in the mid 1950s of the Nike guided missiles in communities all around this country and in Thule, and look how far it's come since then. Yes. Where did you? What happened? Did you get discharged then from Thule? Did you stay that?
Well, that was it. That was really my second assignment. I started out in Minot, and I was in civil engineering there. And since you're in civil engineering, they kind of jokingly say, "Oh, you're in roads and commodes," because that was our important mission: keep the bases operational. So we would, have different maintenance projects. We'd have new construction projects. We'd monitor those. So we did that at Minot. Then we went to Thule for a year. Then up there, I applied for a scholarship program to go to a university. They had a number of universities that cooperate with the military, where you can go there and get your degree. So I signed up, and I saw that there was a space available at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And so I was awarded that for a year and a half to get my master's in engineering, mechanical engineering. And I left Thule, and I think it was the end of September, mid-September. It was like 35 degrees up there. That's the warm temperature in Greenland. It got to 40 below in the wintertime. But anyway, left there at 35 degrees, got to Tucson, it was 105, so a 70-degree temperature increase. So it was like a shock wave.
You figure they owed that to you.
They did. That partial recovery there. And it was different because everybody was so bundled up in Thule, trying to stay warm. Well, you get down to this place, and oh my gosh, the mini skirts.
Was Thule cold year round?
Yeah, the high temperature in the year, I think the record high temperature ever was like 45 degrees or something like that. But we were there. It would just stay at 40 below. It was 40 below through the winter.
40 below.
Yeah.
Were you married at the time?
No, I was a bachelor.
Bachelor. Yeah. So it made it easier. They probably didn't have families at the...
Oh, they did.
Did they?
Yeah. One thing they had, and that compare the technology from then to now. Back then, we had what's called morale calls, and these were telephone calls that you would sign up for 15 minutes once a week. That's all you got, 15 minutes of telephone. So you'd sign up for it. Say I was scheduled Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock. So I'd call the operator on base there in Thule, and they would check you in or switch you into the operations down in Cheyenne Mountain, the operators down there, which is in Colorado. And then they would talk to you and say, who do you want to call? And they'd dial any number in the States for you. So most of the time, I just call my parents. And, then if I was lucky, I'd get through. I'd be able to talk to them for 15 minutes. But that was it. Nowadays, and we have my youngest son is stationed in Japan, and we communicate with them 2 or 3 times a week on FaceTime. You can actually see them besides hearing them. And you don't have to schedule anything. It's just, get on your computer, or your laptop or whatever, boom, you can dial in or they can call you, and unlimited. I mean, it's just amazing, the difference in technology. So that was a big plus. That's a big plus now.
Well, you weren't in any combat in that time. You didn't have any combat.
Well, not for me. They had, of course, Vietnam was going on at the time. And
so that's where all the attention was.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after you in Arizona? Did you get your degree? Got a master's?
Got the master's degree, and from there, when I was in school there, that's where I met my future wife. Yeah. She was also attending the University of Arizona. So met her, and turns out I'm from Akron, Ohio. She's from Goshen, Indiana. So we're up sister states, you might say, up here. So we, after dated her for a while, about 1.5 years, I think, we got married in 1974. And from that point forward, obviously, still married. And in fact, we're celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary this year. So, we went to Kelly Air Force Base, and that was in Texas. That was my next assignment after getting my master's degree. And again, I was at the base civil engineering operation there, roads and commodes, did a lot of mechanical projects on site, and even went TDY, it's temporary duty, to New Jersey for 3 months on a special assignment to install these huge tanks up there. And it was really an interesting job.
And then, what did you do between then? What you got out of the in 1994?
Yeah, well, I'll just briefly. One of the best things that we ever did, of course, that we were assigned to leaving Kelly was to go to Germany. We were assigned at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany, and that was a 3-year tour. We had one child at the time. The second child was born over there, so she's a German. So Ramstein was real good, 3 years. And the nice thing about and being in the military, you're assigned to a foreign country. You get to tour that country and the neighboring countries. Europe is so small. They say it's kind of like visiting New England, because you can visit all these states over here, but over there it's a different country. You might travel through 2 or 3 countries in one day if you're just going on a weekend trips kind of thing. So it was never forget the memories of all the places we saw over there. That was very good.
So where is the air base in terms of country? Is it East Germany or West Germany?
It's adjacent. Ramstein is about, I would say, maybe 100 miles east of Paris. So it's kind of centrally located.
Was that during the days of the Cold War?
Sure. Oh yeah. In fact, that reminds me. One of the visits that we did make while we were there was to see what it was like to visit a Russian dominated country. Actually, it was visiting East Berlin. We were in West Berlin. That's where Ramstein was, but the line between the Free and the Americans was right between East and West Berlin. And Berlin itself was operated by 4 different countries. I think it was France, England, Russia, and the United States. So they split it up at the end of World War II, and it was still that way until the wall came down. When was that? 1989, I think, something like that. So that we took the troop train through East Germany all the way to Berlin. And that was a special trip going over there. And it was like night and day when we toured East Berlin versus what the West Berlin side was. West Berlin was like visiting a modern day town, city like New York. When you go across the border, it was drab and dreary, just between the communist countries and the free countries. Amazing difference.
Any contacts with the Russians?
Well, with the security on that side, when we took that troop train up, they tell you take your name tags off. It's about a 2-hour ride at night going through there. We might be stopped a few times. Just keep your head straight ahead. Don't look out the windows and don't harass them or anything. The train goes all the way through East Germany till it gets to Berlin, which is totally surrounded by East Germany. See, so that's the way it was. And this is before that they became back united. They
Yes.
got away from from being behind the Iron Curtain.
So you started talking about they in the train, and they took you to take off your
Take that off
and your rank
whenever you're there.
Yeah.
Probably the rank too. I probably did. I can't remember that.
Any instances, any memories
No,
from
no.
that?
It was an easy trip. We went through Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin from West Berlin to East Berlin. They had all these barriers up there, and that was the wall back in the day. A lot of the viewers won't remember when the wall was up, and like I said, up until the late 80s, I think it was, when they tore that down. In fact, we'll get to that in my civilian job afterwards. I was did some military support kind of work for the Department of Energy when I left, when I finally got out of the military. So anyway, we were 3 years over there. We visited France, and I even went TDY to England once or twice, up to London. We flew down to Turkey on a military temporary duty kind of thing, and on weekends we would drive all over the place. We go to wine fests and beer fests. What a great country!
Yeah, well,
Germany is. We really enjoyed Germany.
That was an interesting time.
It was
for you and your wife. And
Yeah.
The youngsters were pretty small.
Yeah,
those days.
well,
Yeah. But I had hoped. I got as far as New York City with the Nike guided missiles.
Oh, okay.
I had hoped to go
overseas.
like you to
Yeah.
go to Europe. I would love to have seen Berlin
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
after the war.
Yeah.
And remember what it was like.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do when you came back then
From there, let's see, we came back to where I'm at now. We came back to the Dayton area. I was working over at AFIT, Air Force Institute of Technology, which is at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I taught mechanical engineering subjects for about 2 years before we got off active duty. I had just been promoted major at the time, and but I turned it down. We had 3 kids, or 2 kids, 1 on the way, and my career field, we were in, like I said, Thule. We do very frequently go off to remote sites, and I didn't want to do that, go away for a year or 2 away from the family, so we just decided it's time to get out. So I got out of active duty after spending 2 years at AFIT. What I did after I got a job down at the Mound in Miamisburg, and that was a Department of Energy facility, which I mentioned briefly. They built components for the nuclear bombs over there. It was kind of part of the weapons community. But so I was into facilities engineering there. But right after I got out, though, a friend of mine who was also he was in the Air Force Reserves, he says, "Why don't you come join us, and you can do some more civil engineering at Wright-Patterson, be a weekend warrior kind of thing." So I joined the reserves, and I was part of that outfit for 14 years. So I've got like 25 years total in the military. Yeah.
And you're not active out there now.
No, I retired from there. Actually, they closed the 906 fighter group down in '94, and there is another group on the other side of the base that's still there, a cargo wing, but we were done.
And so you ended up in Dayton because you were transferred to Wright-Patterson?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And we lived in Huber Heights for about 7 years. Then we moved down to Centerville, and now we're in Springboro. So yeah,
Good.
We had 2 more kids over here, so we have 5 children. Went to school in the area, and each one of them went to a different college. So now we have 10 grandkids.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What rank were you?
Well, came in, as an ROTC guy. I was a brown bar, a second lieutenant, and just went through the normal promotion cycles. Like I said, I was offered a majority, whatever, when I was still on active duty, but turned that down, got out. But I got my major's leaves anyway, just within a year after getting into the reserve squadron. And then I got promoted there after about 4 years to lieutenant colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel?
Yeah, so I'm a telephone colonel. If you answer the phone and say, "This is Colonel Lammlein," they don't know if you're a light colonel or a full bird colonel. So telephone colonel.
And there's a difference.
Oh yeah. That's a big notch, big step ahead or up if you become a full bird. So anyway,
Do you have any in your memory, thinking back of your time in the service? What's the most unusual event that comes to mind?
well, we had in the reserves we did every year we would do an annual tour, and sometimes the annual tour was just right there at the base. Sometimes it was off to some training, like down at Eglin Air Force Base, where you learn how to lay rapid runway repair kits. In case there were bases being bombed in Europe, you'd be stationed over there to fix the runways. But every third year, you'd go somewhere. I mean, overseas. We went back to Germany a couple times for a week's or 2 weeks duty. One year we went down to the Central America, and then what they do every 2 weeks, a different squadron would rotate in to help build. What we were building was mini hospitals at this site. It was run by Marian old missionary nuns. Somehow they requested from the U.S. government, "Hey, can you help us build a mini hospital?" So that's what we did. And so we were there in the middle of that. It was all summer long. Different outfits would be coming and going. So we were there for 2 weeks, and that was really interesting. In Panama, living down there.
Oh, yeah.
One of the scary things, and sometimes they call me, the guys in the outfit called me Wrong Way Corrigan, because we were at the base in the middle weekend. Always you try to say, "What are we going to do this weekend?" Well, one of the guys said, "Why don't we go to a nice restaurant down in the city?" And I can't remember what they call the city. Maybe it was Panama. It wasn't Panama City, I don't think. But anyway, this was the days of Noriega. I think you might remember him. He was kind of a terrorist from down there. And anyway, we finally arrested him on drug dealing and had him in Miami, Florida, in prison for a while. But anyway, that day we went out and we toured the city on a bus tour. We went by his house and saw his name on the door. But later that day we went back in the city. We just got and jumped in the cars and we drove. And the way you had to go from the base, the correct way, was a kind of a big loop all the way around. And I'm not sure why, but anyway, I guess I did find out why later. We went to this nice restaurant, had the local food. At the end, I said, "Well, the shortest distance between two lines is just is a straight line." So I said, "Let's just go this way back to the base." Well, we did. There was 2 or 3 cars of us and back to back, and we drove through the city, and oh my gosh, it was scary.
Oh.
And because we weren't on too friendly terms with the government down there at that time. So we got through the city. We actually jumped a curb or two, and finally we could see the base. But then we drove across the field. We got back to the base. We finally made it. Nobody was hurt. Boy, did I breathe a sigh of relief. So that's why they had you looping around the city, not going the shortest distance.
That's the engineer in you.
Yeah, I guess.
If you're just joining us, this is Lima Valley Communications Council Salute to the Veterans podcast. I'm your host, Bob Daly, and today we're talking to Air Force veteran Denny Lammlein. What was the best part of your military experience?
Well, 2 things. One, I went through the ROTC program, and I'll just put a word in there for if we have any young folks that are in high school right now. It's a good way to get an education. If you get one of the scholarships, too, it's free. I mean, you owe them 4 years, but what a deal. So that kicked it off. But in the service, I think one of the best things about it is the people that you worked with. I mean, we still visit and, Christmas cards with a number of the people that we worked with through the, 11 years of active duty that we had. And so the people you meet are really great, diverse. It was really great. And also the people, even back here. I mean, everybody you work with is just so great, and they're so helpful for different things that come up to help veterans, to help people. You're far from home sometimes, so it's difficult, but the military sticks together.
You got your ROTC commission. You were in college around the times of the Vietnam experience, and there were some protests about young men going into military service. How did you feel about that at the time?
I guess I didn't see too much of that. Trying to think time phrase. It was really right towards the end of the 60s. I think I had already left for the service when things really got hot over here, like the shootings at Kent State. That's right, locally here.
Oh, yeah.
Or up in local to Akron.
Yeah.
And I think that was 74, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, it didn't impact us. I mean, you're kind of sad looking back at your country if you're overseas and you see all this stuff going on. But the big picture, long term, looking back, these kids, these protesters were essentially right. I mean, you hate to see them protesting, but if it's a peaceful protest, that's fine. That's okay. But it turned out that we had a lot of bad decisions coming from D.C. on operating that war. So anyway, that's behind us now.
I went in 1955, and we didn't have that.
Yeah.
And I can remember the first time I was off active duty. I was in Washington, and one of the National Guard units from Ohio was called up to go to the Berlin problem in early 60s. And I did notice from some of the uniformed men and officers a reluctance to go and some concern about having to go and disrupt their lives.
Yeah, a friend of mine, he went to Vietnam. He was drafted in the Army, and he was over there for his year. And boy, he said it was just really terrible when they came back. I mean, you wouldn't wear your uniform. They got no respect for quite a while until people realized, hey, these guys were just following orders. They just did what the country told them to do. So it wasn't their fault. So anyway, things have turned around tremendously towards Vietnam veterans, and really good to all veterans right now.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's good. But I have another military veteran who was a Marine in Vietnam, and he said the same thing that you did, that was a mistake. And in retrospect, and things have smoothed over.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Some of the guys in this group I'm in with, these are a bunch of retired military officers. We meet once a month out at the base. And some of them were pilots over there, and listen to their stories. But just recently, several of them went on river cruise down, over in Vietnam, and they visited a lot of these places. When they left over there, they said, well, I'm never coming back. But some of them have. So, time heals all things. So it's.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's been for them. For them, that's been quite a while.
Oh,
yeah. And I expect I can understand that that there is something that was a big part of their lives.
Yeah. Sure.
I can remember the stories. The Vietnam Wall was just here. Did you see the Vietnam Wall when it was in town?
Oh yeah, in town, and we drove right by it. We saw the real when it was up.
Oh, did you? Well, I've seen the real one.
Yeah.
I've seen the real one too.
But when they bring that around every once in a while, or are going to the, it's just really neat to see that.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit of an amateur cameraman and photographer, and I was over there, and I can remember one of the veterans and his wife were kind of in the back, and they came up and they found the name. He found the names of his buddies, and he was right up there looking at it, and his wife holding on to him. You could tell that guy had been through some tough times. Yeah. And those must have been those for the boys in Vietnam have been tough. Do you do anything with the VFW or any of the other veterans organizations?
No, I'm not involved with those. Just this one that am a member of its MOA, Military Officers Association of America. And it's kind of an organization that lobbies Congress. They have their main office in Alexandria, Virginia, and they are supportive of the military, enlisted all the way up to generals for various things. There's a lot of things that get cut short. Sometimes Congress looks for ways to cut money. So back in the day, 10 years, 20 years ago, they might say no raise this year or something like that, or they should, but they hadn't raised maybe the subsistence, the extra money you get for food, the housing allowance and so forth. So this group, been lobbying over the last 20, 30 years, have really made a lot of improvements for the military. One example recently is the wives of the men that are out over there. They might have their own skill. They might be a teacher, for example. Maybe they're stationed in Ohio, and they get moved to Florida. They go down there and say, "I'm sorry, you're not signed up. You're not eligible. You got an Ohio license." They have passed a law now that if the spouses go someplace where they don't have a particular licensure that they had back in their last base, that they need to honor it. They will honor it. So that's a law now.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we're about running out of time. Do you have anything that you'd like to share about your story? Something you've always wanted to mention about your experience as a veteran?
Well, it's. I think everybody should somehow contribute back to their country in some way, and I was glad to be able to do that. We have kind of a background of military folks in the family. My uncle, he was in World War II, and I'll never forget the time we had a graduation party for one of my nephews, and he came, and he brought all of his maps. He was in the intelligence office over there in the Army, and I don't know, he had a bunch of D-Day kind of maps and stuff. It was just so interesting to listen to him talk and show all that stuff. But so my uncle was in, my brother was in, and he was in the Vietnam War. He was over in Thailand for a year. So he was there. So I think I kind of followed his footsteps, he made it through ROTC and survived, and everything went well for him. He didn't stay in. He was just in for 4 years total, something like that. But I got in, and I got the scholarship that really kept me going, and we just really enjoyed it. Great people, travel, that sort of thing, and you're feeling like you're doing your part for your country, I think.
Good. How would you like people to remember you from your story that you've just told today?
Well, just nothing special. I mean, just work hard with whatever you do, whatever career field you get into. Just try to be the best you can be, and take one day at a time. And one thing, if you ever have a problem with something, I think it's part of the problem we have today with a lot of people being messed up in the head and so forth. Don't just hold it inside. Talk to people. Get out there. Find somebody else. As soon as you unburden yourself, it's like, well, there's more people holding up this burden than just me. So do that. I think it'll help.
That's a special message to veterans too, who are feeling the weight of their experiences.
Yeah, it's very, very true.
Well, thank you very much, Denny Lammlein. It's delighted to have a chance to talk to you.
Well, good talking to you, Bob.
Take care.